Hi everybody, good morning or good afternoon or good evening whenever you're seeing this video. I'm Lady V and we are going to be doing a little virtual education today surrounding jewelry making. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to make a ring and a necklace using craft wire. And we'll go a step-by-step process so that you can learn right along with me and make really great jewelry that you can sell and to help sustain. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to bend the video camera down so you can see the tools that I have on my desk. So what you're going to notice is on the desk there are, let me get this kind of tuned in here for you. Okay. On the desk what we have is we have different things. One is, in this corner, I have craft wire. This comes from Michael's, comes on a roll. This is 18 gauge craft wire. This is what we use to make rings. This here, this is also craft wire. This is 20 gauge. And then what we have that is stronger is we have 16 gauge wire. What happens is the smaller the number, the larger the wire gauge. So something that is thin like this little piece of wire here, this is 24 gauge wire. It's very, very flexible. It's used for wrapping around crystals and stuff. It looks really great. It's very, very strong, but it's very thin and very pliable. When we get to the heavier gauges, this is 16 gauge wire, and you can see it's much more rigid, okay? So if you will, take a piece of wire that'll be on your table for you, you can see the difference. You can almost feel the energy of the wire that we're working with, okay? So then what we have is again, this is the 18 gauge, and see how this one has more bend to it? I don't have to work so hard working with it. We're going to be working with 18 gauge wire for your ring this morning, first thing, okay? Also on the table, what you're going to notice is there are beads here. Now when we're working with beads, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to use a round bead first, so that it makes it easier for you to learn this quick process of making rings. Then you can move on to like stones that are square or that have different types of shapes. The reason why it's important to learn how to work with a round bead first is that it's easier in the process to get the wire around the bottom, which we'll go through in just a moment. So with that said, now I'm going to bring you to the tools we'll be using today. Let me move this over. It might be a little rough, so we'll see if I can show this to you. Okay. So what we have here is we have cutters. We have flat nose pliers. See how their nose is flat? I have another set of flat nose pliers, and this also is flat. And then we have what we call round nose pliers, and you'll see that the tips are round. And one thing I want you to take a notice of is that the front of the barrel is very thin, and as you go towards the back, it gets thicker. When we're making loops and curls, if you're working from the back of the plier, your curl will be larger. If you're working very close up towards the tip, it will become smaller. There's only one rule about all of these tools, and that is that if you notice on the cutters, you notice that it goes up. Well, when you're cutting wire in front of somebody, I want you to turn it over and cut into the table. Here's an example of that. When I cut this wire with this blade going down towards the table, what happens is the wire goes down. If I did just the opposite, if I cut it up with the tips going up, see how that just ejected? So it's really, really important that when you're cutting with these pliers, these very, very sharp pliers, that you are cutting, down into the table so that that wire stays there, okay? That's the only rule regarding these guys. All right, so you ready to get started? I'm gonna bring the camera back up. Also, just a last thing real quick, on the table, I'm sorry, this is a file. We use this to soften the edges of extending wires that might be sharp. And then this is a ring mandrel. And so a ring mandrel is really great because this is all the sizes of the fingers, at least a universal sizing. And you'll notice that everybody will have one of these to work with today. On the top of these, you're going to see US sizing. And when you see US sizing, if you're a size, let's say a 7, you're going to go down to your number 7, and that is going to be your size. This circumference around this mandrel, that is a size 7 for you. Now, what I don't have on the table is a ring of ring sizers, but they're the purple fixture that is included in your kit. And what you're going to be doing is sticking your finger in it. That's the first thing we're going to do to find out what size you are. Okay, I'm going to bring this back now. All right, guys. So take out the purple rings that you'll see there on a chain, and you're going to stick them on your finger to where you find the size that works for you. What you'll notice is when you find the size that works for you, there'll be a number at the bottom of the little tab on that ring, and it may say -7. All that means is you're a 7.5. You're not a negative, you're just a half size, okay? So go ahead and do that now. Find out what size you are, and then I want you to get all your materials ready. First thing I want you to find is I want you to find a bead that's about this size, okay? About that size bead, and there's plenty of them in the baskets that are available to you. So then we're going to move on to the next thing. Once you've got your bead, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut a piece of wire about this long. It's about 6 inches, 7 inches long. Now I want you to notice that this wire is rounded, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take that bead that you had, and I'm going to put that bead in the middle of this wire, okay? So now that we put this in the middle of the wire, now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold onto it real tight, and I'm going to make sure this is the same amount of width as this. So you get as close as we can to center that bead on this wire, and then here's our first movement. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hold onto this bead, and I'm going to bend that down so it does that, okay? You're going to do this on the other side as well, but hold that bead, and you're going to bend it down so you get kind of this shape, okay? This shape is kind of the fish shape. Kind of looks like a fish, right? So this is a fish shape. Here's our next move. Okay, so if you can imagine, I'm putting my thumb at the very, very bottom of this bead. See how if I drew a line from the bottom of my thumb, it would graze the bottom of this bead? That's where you want to be. You don't want to be down far, you want to be right up underneath the bottom of this bead. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is hold on to that bead, and I want you to simply bend it up and make an L. So this is what that's going to look like, okay? It's going to look like an L. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Get to that bottom of the bead, whoops, and bend it up. So you're ending with a piece that looks like this. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, here's the fun part. You take, this is your ring mandrel. You know you're a 7 or whatever size you are. You're going to take that and you're going to look for your number on here, and you're going to put it right on your number. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take, so you isolate this and you put it right on your thumb like that, okay? And then you're going to wrap the first wire around and straight up, just like that, okay? Can you see what I'm doing here? So I've gone around, I went around and straight up, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to go around and straight up, okay? So what this does is this makes this shape. See how it looks? And let's bring it closer to the camera and you can see. That's all it is. Okay. Here's our next thing. So you want to pull these wires tight. so that that bottom wire goes right around the ring mandrel. Here's the next thing. Take one wire and go on one side, and take the other wire and go on the opposite side. So now it looks like that, okay? Let's go ahead and do that. Here's our next thing. I want you to take the wire and go underneath the bead and wrap it around it. And you're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to wrap, I'm going to grab this tool to help me. I'm going to grab this wire and I'm going to go underneath the bead. See how I went underneath the bead right there? Same thing. I'm going to take this and going to take it right around underneath. So I should end up with 2 tails, and this wire was a little short, so I'm going to suggest you guys get at least 8 inches of wire. So it'll look like, let's do this. It's going to look like that. See how the wire went underneath the bead? This is a little hard to show you because it's so close up. But so it went from here all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, okay? So now the question is, what do we do with these 2 parts? Well, we're going to make them pretty, okay? And this is how you're going to do it. You're going to stick that ring mandrel back in there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab with your round nose pliers, these round nose pliers, you're going to grab the very, very tip of that wire. I'm going to try to show you this way. And you're going to pretend, let's pretend this is a lock and a door, okay? And you're going to take, and this is your key. Let's just pretend that for pretend's sake, right? You're going to put your key in the door. You're going to grab it with the very, very end of the pliers, and you're going to turn into a circle. And the same thing here. You're going to turn into a circle. And so what you end up having is 2 circles at the end of that, and it makes it pretty. Now what you can do is you can pull it a little closer to the bead and make it a little bit closer, and I'll tell you why, because these circles will catch on things. Now what you want, and you also want to make sure that your circles are flat, okay? So when we take this ring off and we put it on the finger, it has these really cool little circular wires here on it. And it's purely decorative, but it's a nice way to finish, or what we call resolve, the ring. You can bring it up onto the stone, which makes it really kind of cool. And with that said, you've made your first ring. Pretty easy stuff. This is about a $2 or $3 cost in terms of materials, and you can sell it for 10 or more. So that's Ring Making 101. We're going to do this more live, but for right now, you're going to kind of get the basic idea as we go through it, and I'll send you pictures as the process unfolds. Good luck, kids.